Unjustified and prejudicial. Judge's summary in Vybz Kartel's murder trial attacked by lawyers appealing the conviction. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I am Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Doreen Samuels. Also this evening, tackling the drought. Government considers convening committee to focus on dealing with period of low rainfall.
Extension zones of special operations to be prolonged for another 60 days.
Not true. Public health officials dispute claims that tourists got sick from swimming at Blue Hole.
And in business news, job cuts. Grace Kennedy separates 70 in restructuring exercise.
There's also sports commentary and weather in this newscast, but before the break, the feedback question.
This evening, we're asking, have you changed the way you use water in light of the current dry spell?
Share comments online, facebook.com/Television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam.
Please stay with us. Primetime News returns right after this break. Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to folks on onespotmedia.com.
Up first this evening, biased and prejudicial. The words used to describe the trial judge's summary to which the jury convicted dancehall entertainer Vybz Kartel for murder.
The declaration came as attorney Valerie Nita Robertson and other defense counsels continued their attempts to show weaknesses in the trial which led to Kartel's conviction.
TVJ's Vashon Brown was in court today and joins us live. Vashon?
Thank you so much, Archie and Doreen. You will recall that yesterday the attorneys for Sean Campbell made their submissions to the Court of Appeal. Well, today Vybz Kartel's attorney Valerie Nita Robertson began her submissions, pointing out that the judge erred several times in his summary of the case to the jury. The three-member panel, Court of Appeal President Dennis Morrison, Justice Patrick Brooks and Justice Frank Williams is presiding over the matter. Day 2 of the Court of Appeal hearing for dancehall entertainer Vybz Kartel and his co-accused. One of the attorneys representing Vybz Kartel, Valerie Nita Robertson, made her submissions to the court today. She argued that the trial judge erred at many points in his summation where he made what she called unjustified, improper, and prejudicial comments and omissions pertaining to different aspects of the evidence. She argued that at different points, he misquoted the evidence and made palpable biased comments, all which were fatal to the possibility of a fair trial. She said the judge attempted to convey to the jury a sense of how dangerous the appellants must be, because the prosecution's main witness, Chow, and the deceased would not easily be scared. In his summation, the judge said, "Again now, Madam Foreman and your members, those are not two very soft guys. These are men who lock guns. In fact, on the very night of the incident on the 16th, the evidence is that a gun was brought to Chow to lock. So these men you would think wouldn't buckle readily. They wouldn't get frightened so easily. But they were telling you here, we were scared, knowing the situation we were into."
What he did was to give one side, a one-sided view that really put the appellants in a negative light when there was no evidential basis to do it. So one of the complaints is that these negative directions were left with the jury, and so they would have put the appellant Palmer in a particular light, which was negative.
Kartel's lawyers also argued today that the judge erred in his treatment of the unsworn statements of the appellants when he failed to inform the jury of the possible effects of the statements on their consideration of the appellant's case.
Well, the unsworn statement, the learned judge should have, in my view, left them with the possible methods of dealing with the unsworn statement. So, for example, if you accept it, then that means an acquittal. If you have a doubt, it's still an acquittal. It's only when you don't accept it, then you go back and look at the Crown's case. Or if it makes you feel sure of the Crown's case, then that is how it is applied.
Mrs. Nita Robertson also raised concerns about what she called amplified imaginative storytelling language by the trial judge in his summation. The judge said, "The next point that the prosecution is relying on is that Chow was brought back by Palmer and Sean Campbell into the area where they had been before, and there they saw Lizard lying motionless on the ground with Andre St. John and Kahira Jones and another man over him. Imagine that." That phrase, "imagine that," the defense views as problematic.
He is saying to the jury Well, this seems to be some fantastic thing the defense has come upon.
Cartel is appealing the life sentence imposed on him in 2014 for the murder of Clive Lizard Williams on August 16, 2011. Sean Campbell, Andre St. John and Kahira Jones were also convicted for the murder. Now, attorney at law Bert Samuels also wrapped up his submissions this morning on behalf of his client, Sean Campbell. He urged the appeal court not to consider a retrial for the accused. Mr. Samuels argued that there were multiple defects in the trial. He said those defects are incurable and any attempt to cure them would give the prosecution a second bite of what he called an infected cherry. He further argued that to order a new trial would give the prosecution an opportunity to make good the faulty evidence. Now, I should point out that lawyers for the appellants will make submissions until Thursday. It is expected that the prosecution will respond to the arguments thereafter, and the hearing, as you know, continues tomorrow. Archie Doreen, back to you.
Thank you, Vashan. Now, water restrictions may soon be imposed in some areas in light of the current drought conditions being experienced across the island.
The National Water Commission made the announcement as water storage levels at some facilities have fallen drastically.
Parliamentarians also discussed the issue briefly this afternoon, promising new water distribution measures. TVJ's Herman Green reports.
Water restrictions are on the horizon for the corporate area. This as the National Water Commission, NWC, says water levels at the Hermitage Dam in St. Andrew has fallen below 50% of its capacity.
And it has been falling by anywhere from a 0.5 percentage point to a 1 percentage point each day, and may force us to implement more stringent measures to try and manage the rate of decline from that facility if there is no change.
Several parishes have also been experiencing lower than average rainfall, leading to worries about drought conditions in coming months. According to Member of Parliament for Portland Western Daryl Vaz, the forecast from the Met Office is for continued low rainfall for the rest of the summer.
Against that background, Mr. Speaker, for Portland, we have developed a trucking schedule for the entire parish for the period July to September, and we are seeking funding through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation as well as the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. That is for parish, for Portland. And I'm suggesting, Mr. Speaker, to all my colleague MPs that they do the same.
He says the government is also considering convening the National Drought Committee in case a more widespread drought is experienced. However, opposition MP Noel Arscott believes the announced measures are not proactive at all. He said, with Jamaica being vulnerable to climate change and drought conditions, plans to counter deforestation should have been implemented long ago.
Also, Minister, the issue of storage. We have been talking about our two storage facility out the Mona Dam and the other one. We need to look as a country at other storage facilities.
Local government minister Desmond McKenzie says $35 million is to be made available through municipal corporations to areas that have been severely affected. He says an assessment is currently being carried out.
We are aware, Mr. Speaker, that there are some parishes that will have to get more attention than others. And we have already identified those parishes. So I'd like to advise this Honourable House that by Monday, I will make the necessary announcements.
The NWC also says water usage from its facilities has increased. However, a date was not given for when restrictions will be implemented. Herman Green, TVJ News.
In the meantime, the prolonged dry spell is starting to impact farmers across the island. This evening, we start a primetime news special looking at how farmers in St. Anne are faring. TVJ Shamela Mitchell reports.
Sunny sky, parched earth, dry fields. Signs hundreds of farmers in St. Anne don't want to see, but are getting used to, as the forecast for a lower than normal rainfall into September extends the dry spell gripping the parish in recent months.
Boy, I tell you, this one will be worse.
If we add up sweet pepper, tomato, and yam, them can get to bear the right and proper way.
K Valley has over 100 farmers. When it rains in these parts, the area is easily flooded. Too little rain or none is just as bad.
If you even try to put the grain in the earth, it cannot grow because the drought keep it down.
Going deeper into the parish, we saw clear signs that the impact is greater. Coffee Ridge is another farming community. Those who reside here depend on rainwater harvesting.
We don't have a parish tank here. We don't have nothing here to contain water more than a little black jug. So you have a little 600 gallon. By the time I look, it's 2 weeks.
Last year, this time, we used to have things to sell, but this year, I don't have nothing to sell.
The dry spell also means big losses. Farmers and vendors are equally affected.
We do about 3 acres and we don't get not even 100 pounds of sweet pepper out of it.
The bag of potato, 8,500 a bag. I'm going to plant 10 bags.
Cabbage now, wholesale is for 40 and 30 a pound. And in the market, you can get like 50 a pound after they buy it. But later on now, like between August, it might go up to $100.
Still, there are those who are hopeful.
Through the school crisis, that's why I look like this. But after school, everything will be all right.
After August, everything loose up back, in September be rain, October rain, November rain, December rain. Yeah, so we set the crop from August go down, we are in a good season.
Reporting from John Reed in Southwest St. Anne, I'm Shamela Mitchell for TVJ News.
The House of Representatives has extended the zones of special operations in Mount Salem, St. James and Denhamtown, Kingston for another 60 days. Even though the parliamentary opposition supported the extensions, they want to know how much it has cost taxpayers. TVJ's Andrea Chisholm was in Gordon House and now joins us live. Andrea?
Thank you very much, Doreen. Now, the ZOSO in Denhamtown expires on August 16 and the one in Mount Salem on September 4. But since Parliament will be taking its annual summer break in August, the government extended the zones of special operations in both areas today. That's to ensure that the security forces and other stakeholders can continue their work. Now, in giving an update to the House, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said there are still public order issues in Mount Salem, but there has been progress in managing interpersonal conflict.
Stone throwing, knife wounding, and I can say that looking at the reports for Mount Salem, we have actually transitioned out of that phase. So you're no longer getting these kinds of violent expressions.
It's a little different though for Denhamtown, as residents are still trying to solve conflicts with knives and machetes. So the security forces, the Prime Minister said, are still needed in that area. Prime Minister Andrew Holness also spoke about progress under the social intervention component of ZOSO.
Mr. Speaker, we have set up block-making projects. We have a back-to-school support program. We have parenting support programs, various community outreach. They have their identification cards. They are now formally recognized and known by the state.
We cannot and we will not oppose those kinds of intervention and the successes which are achieved. But Mr. Prime Minister, back to school assistance, I do it in my constituency every year and there's no ZOSO.
In response to opposition spokesman on national security Fitz Jackson, the Prime Minister said without the presence of the security forces, some communities would not have been able to benefit from the social intervention initiatives. Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for Clarendon Northern, that's Horace Daly, he wants the Prime Minister to tell the country how much the zones of special operations have cost taxpayers so far. And he also had another request.
We have not been able to get a feedback and to question the security forces on issues that members of Parliament have and would like to talk to the security forces, because the committee of the House that is supposed to deal with those things, the internal and external committee, those committees have not been formed. And I'm appealing to you, Prime Minister, when we get back off the recess, let's put the committees in place.
I'm very cautious about giving security data. I think there is a place where it can be shared and will be shared at the National Security Council, where there is a member there. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to start a new debate. I don't want to start a new debate. But, Mr. Speaker, that is, I believe, the appropriate body to examine sensitive information.
On another note, Doreen, the House of Representatives also voted to extend the state of public emergency in St. James. All members of Parliament who were present voted for it, and 11 members were absent. It's back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. A top story this evening, lawyers seeking to overturn the 2014 conviction of Vybz Kartel and co-accused blast trial judge's statement, saying it was biased, unjust and improper. And still ahead, survivors of the 1963 Coral Gardens massacre deny claims they rejected compensation. And in business news, going home, Grace Kennedy makes 70 posts redundant as it pushes through restructuring exercise. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Primetime News. A staunch defense from health officials this evening about the water quality of the Blue Hole in St. Ann. This amidst concerns that a group of tourists had been diagnosed with leptospirosis after visiting the attraction. But health officials in St. Ann argue that the allegations are not true. TVJ's Janela Pursues has part 2 of our Blue Hole Mystery series.
Visitors to the country have developed a great liking for taking dives in the Blue Hole. But on rainy days, the world-renowned attraction resembles a mud bath. Still, there's no stopping persons from jumping in. Questions have arisen about the water quality of the falls, this following the death of 2 visitors who died from the bacteria disease leptospirosis. Others who visited the attraction earlier this year have reported falling sick. Shauna Simmons from Maryland, USA, has been on a quest to find answers after her husband almost died from leptospirosis.
I love Jamaica. I love the people of Jamaica. It's just, I just feel like there just needs to be a little bit of warning. That's all. And I've shared with the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica the protocol that Hawaii follows to warn their tourists.
We're in receipt of correspondence between Director of Veterinary Public Health in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Lynette Peters, and Dr. Marcia Johnson Campbell of the St. James Public Health Service, where Dr. Peters noted that there was no reagent at the National Public Health Lab to do tests for leptospirosis and that the department was trying to procure some. The email also read that if, quote, surveillance, investigation, public education and awareness are not improved, as well as lab testing for leptospirosis, the reports will continue and this may negatively impact tourism, unquote. That was in April. But when we spoke to Senior Medical Officer for St. Ann, Dr. Patrick Wheatle, a few weeks ago, he stressed that the water from the Blue Hole is safe.
I can only speak to what is it that we have done, in the sense that we have done due diligence as we know how. And we have not just done it alone, but we have done it in collaboration with the National Surveillance Team as well.
Issues have also arisen about the attraction, which is not regulated. We put the question to the Executive Director of the Tourism Product Development Company, TPDCO, Dr. Andrew Spencer.
The TPDCO has expressed an interest in Blue Hole, and I'll say this from the perspective that we don't have within our control all the assets. Although all the assets are our business because we're a product development company. So we have expressed an interest to the National Land Agency for getting control of the space through an agreement so that we can better manage it.
Until that is done, visitors can continue to take dives, but at their own risk. Janela Precious, TVJ News.
It's not true. That declaration from members of the Rastafari Coral Gardens Benevolent Society following reports that they rejected the government's trust fund offer. The $102 million proposal was made by Prime Minister Andrew Holness after saying sorry in 2017 for the atrocities committed against the community in 1963. TVJ's Kalisha Williams reports.
Since 2017, the government has been working its way into the Coral Gardens Rasta community's good book. For the most part, it has not worked. First, a rejected apology which was made by Prime Minister Andrew Holness to the survivors of the incident dubbed the 1963 Coral Gardens Massacre. The Prime Minister went as far as promising to set up a $102 million trust fund as restitution. But recently, news surfaced that the community rejected the offer. Or did they?
The Rastafari Coral Gardens Benevolent Society is concerned about the headlines published in the newspaper July 10, 2018, titled Rastas Reject Government 102 Million Trust Fund, as the article does not reflect the position of the RCGBS and is likely to have a negative impact on current negotiation with the government of Jamaica.
According to Public Relations Officer at the Rastafari Coral Gardens Benevolent Society, the RCGBS, Camellia Brown, the only concern was that the money should be paid directly to the survivors or the society.
Those survivors who wish to have their compensation paid directly to them or through the RCBGS should therefore have their wishes respected, as they have suffered long and hard enough.
It was also made clear that the RCGBS and the government will be going back to the bargaining table. They say other issues such as expungement of ganja charges and free health care for the survivors needed to be addressed. According to General Secretary of the RCGBS, Pamela Williams, the welfare of the over 40 survivors is critical.
Some of them are, facing medical challenges and even currently being treated for different ailments. And it is costly for medical attention, as we all know in Jamaica. For example, one test for one treatment for one of our elders is currently above $1 million. So we cannot just focus on cash compensation.
Those statements were made at a media briefing in Montego Bay, St. James on Monday. Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
Stop doing it, an appeal to residents from National Water Commission President Mark Barnett as he addressed sewage-related issues at the latest St. Catherine Municipal Corporation meeting. TVJ's Krista Campbell reports.
The residents of Waterford must start to behave better. They are going to constantly have blockages if they constantly deposit undesirables in the sewers.
From wipes to wash brushes, shoes, and even heavier solid waste, President of the National Water Commission, NWC, Mark Barnett, warns that when these items end up in sewers, they cause clogs, leading to situations like these, an overflow of sewage and a health hazard. Councillor for the Waterford Division, Fenley Douglas, says it's one of the major complaints he gets from residents.
I am told that the one Vector jet serves 3 parishes. And can you imagine you have sewage, raw sewage running from inside your home, the back of the house, and you're waiting 3-4 days before somebody come to assist you?
The intention of the Vector jet is not to go and do everyday blockages, because those should not be a recurring problem. The Vector jets were specifically purchased to do routine conveyance line maintenance. Stormwater carries silt. Silt will sit into the pipeline for a period of time if you don't remove it. And that is part of the reason why those Vector jets were acquired to assist in that process.
Mr. Barnett pointed to work being done to improve sewage treatment plants across St. Catherine. However, one councillor raised concern that the Greater Portmore facility may not have adequate capacity to cope with new plans for commercial and residential developments in the area.
Equipment have been procured and installed in the ponds, and we are now just as part of the commitment to procure the works contract, which will include draining of each train of ponds, rehabilitate, line them, put them back into service. And that we expect those contract arrangements should be in place by about September, October.
He says the NWC is making moves to replace older sewage systems with newer ones and to address issues like bad odor and foam, which sometimes emanate from older sewage treatment facilities. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Member of Parliament for St. Anne Northwestern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, has sought to explain why the People's National Party raised questions about Managing Director of the state-run National Energy Solutions Limited, NESOL. The PNP came under fire after it called for the sacking of Managing Director Carolyn Warren following a revelation that she was convicted for a drug offence 25 years ago. But speaking at a PNP meeting in St. Elizabeth recently, Dr. Dayton Campbell said due diligence must be followed.
My issue, and what I heard MP Paul will to be saying, is that you cannot have a board employing somebody with a record and don't know that the person has the record, which is a totally different matter, because there is a thing called due diligence.
He added that situations like these could have a greater impact on the public sector.
And you said to yourself, so we are satisfied that this person has transformed themselves. Me agree with you, man. Me would tell you, man, say foolishness in my way if you have done your checks. But it cannot be that you're employing people without doing the checks. Because it could be a greater breach than that, and you don't know.
In the meantime, the PNP continues to press its demand for Dr. Andrew Wheatley to be fired from the cabinet. The MP for St. Ann Northwestern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, chided Prime Minister Andrew Holness for not relieving Dr. Wheatley of all portfolios.
The same man was saying him going to give job description to his ministers, them and hold them accountable. Now with evidence right in front of him, he refused to take action and tell them about it no allegation. Those are not allegations, sir. Those are factual things, and you are being a hypocrite by saying that you're not acting on those things.
First, it was multiple fires at the Riverton disposal site in St. Andrew, then a major fire at the retirement dump in St. James. Now the Jamaica Environment Trust, JET, is calling out the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, for what they say is the poor management of the dumps. More in this report.
The Riverton disposal site in St. Andrew has had multiple fires with related smoke pollution since the start of the year. The latest was a major fire in June. Well, on Saturday, the retirement dump in St. James had a similar fire, with the smoke nuisance continuing for days. Now concerns are again being raised about the frequency of fires at the dumps. Legal Director of the Jamaica Environment Trust, JET, Terry Angaya, is blasting the government for their solid waste management.
As it relates to waste management in Jamaica, it has certainly not been on the forefront of any political administration's agenda. And that is the challenge. It requires resources, adequate resources, enforcement. It requires so much more, but definitely, certainly it requires action. And that is not what we have been seeing.
On both occasions, residents have complained about the seemingly toxic fumes from the fires which affected them. But Ms. Gaia says that too many people are living too close to the dumps. Referring to NSWMA manager Audley Gordon's comment on Sunday that someone lit the retirement dump fire, Ms. Gaia said with the kind of disposal system Jamaica has, fires are inevitable. She also blamed the NSWMA for the easy unauthorized access people have to the dumps.
What we have is dumps, waste disposal sites, and there is
like a big garbage pan.
Like a big garbage pan. So persons, everything goes there. Chemical waste, medical waste, old refrigerators, electronics, everything goes there. And it's almost inevitable that over time with the heat, the rain, the weather conditions, things are going to happen, whether combustible or whether by actual human intervention.
Ms. Gaia made some suggestions on how the government can control the disposal sites to prevent future fires.
I think if we remove the economics incentive and have transfer stations where it's almost like a small sorting station, there the garbage would go. You take away all the tires that people want. That's why they go on the dump in the first place. The plastic bottles, the glass bottles, and have some separation mechanism happening other than the mere picking on the dump sites. Then I think that would first and foremost control the activities happening on the dump.
Ms. Gaia was speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Tuesday.
And time now for the responses from our friends on Facebook and Twitter. Archie is at the smartboard.
Thanks, Lorraine. Here's our question this evening asking, have you changed the way you use water in light of the current dry spell? Here's our first comment. This person says, yes, I have. I've become more strict about treating water before I consume it. I believe a recent spate of short-lived diarrhea in my area is evidence of waterborne diseases that are associated with this climate, and we should all ensure our water is purged or purified in some way, I think they mean. Second comment, to be honest, as long as the water is still running in the pipe, you are in oblivion until there's none. You then begin to exercise caution. Third comment, I go to the river, use a container to pour water for flushing. I wipe my car so as not to wash often, and I less laundry. And here's our final comment for this section. Actually, I haven't, because the heat ain't bothering me. Maybe because I manipulate my body temperature to make me comfortable in the environment I'm in. Keep your comments coming on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/Television Jamaica, and your tweets to @TelevisionJam. The Business Day and news from overseas after the break.